He slammed the rent contract on my dresser like I was a stranger crashing on his couch, not the mother who raised him, fed his kids, and kept his house running for 3 straight years, for free. "Pay rent or get out," James said, without flinching. So I left. No yelling, no tears, just one bag, one step, one door closed. What he didn't know? A week later, I'd be sitting on $4.2 million and holding the deed to the very house he thought was his. Before we begin, make sure to like and subscribe. And please tell me and others, what's one life lesson everyone should hear before it's too late? Share it in the comments below. Thanks. I was folding James's youngest son's laundry when he knocked on the door, holding a manila envelope like it was a court summons. "Can we talk?" he said, but there was no warmth in his voice. I thought it might be something about the boys, school issues maybe. Instead, he handed me the paper, rent agreement, $200 a month. Due the 1st of every month, starting next week. I stared at it, trying to find a trace of humor on his face, but his expression was stone. "You've been living here for free for 3 years, Mom. We just can't carry the whole load anymore," he said. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. My chest felt tight, like the walls were shrinking. Heather wasn't far behind. She stood just outside the doorframe, arms crossed, eyes sharp with something between smugness and relief. "It's only fair," she added. "We pay all the bills. You eat, you shower, you live here. It's not sustainable." I looked at James again, searching for the son I raised, the boy I worked night shifts for, skipped meals for, sold my car for when he and Heather needed help with that down payment. Instead, I saw a man I didn't recognize. "I've been helping," I managed to say. "The kids, the cleaning, every meal you've eaten since 2020. "That's not the same as money," Heather snapped. "We need cash, not casseroles." I couldn't breathe. That night I overheard them in the kitchen. "She's not going to pay," Heather said. "She doesn't have it. I told you, just give her the deadline and let her figure it out." "I'm not running a charity." James didn't argue. "Let's just get through the next month," he mumbled. "She'll leave." I stood frozen at the top of the stairs, fists clenched. I packed before sunrise. Just one suitcase. No goodbye. I left the house I helped them buy. The house with my name still quietly sitting on the co-ownership line of the deed, a detail they'd long stopped mentioning. I checked into a budget hotel 2 miles from their street. Mold on the bathroom. Tile, flickering ceiling light, water pressure like a dripping tap. But it was mine, and it was silent. I sat on the bed holding the rent contract like it was a betrayal letter, and for the first time in years, I didn't cry. I just felt cold. They didn't want me as a mother anymore, only as a tenant, and if they couldn't get my money, they wanted my absence. That was fine. They'd get both. The room smelled faintly of bleach and stale air, like every choice made there had been wiped clean and replaced with silence. I sat on the edge of the thin mattress, holding my phone like it might ring with an apology that never came. The wallpaper. Peeled in one corner, the heater made a dull rattle every 30 seconds, and outside, the parking lot buzzed with a flickering security light that never turned off. It had been 3 days since I walked out of James and Heather's house. They hadn't called, hadn't texted, not even to ask if I made it somewhere safe. I lived with them for over 3 years. I raised their boys from diapers to kindergarten readiness. I gave up my lease, my independence, my small but steady life, all because they asked for help when daycare was too expensive and work from home wasn't working. And now they had discarded me like clutter. I stared at the bottom of my suitcase, trying to remember what I even owned anymore. 1 purse, 2 pairs of pants, a beat-up cardigan. I opened the old file folder I always carried in case I needed emergency documentation. Birth certificate, social security card, hospital records, from my years as a licensed home nurse, and tucked between the pages, I found it. A thin envelope labeled Equity Transfer, Whitefield Estates. My breath caught. It was from 5 years ago. My former employer, Mrs. Langford, had left it for me in her final days, just after I spent 2 months at her side during her last round of chemotherapy. I remembered her voice now, raspy but kind. "I've arranged something for you, dear. Quiet but valuable. You were more than staff. You were family." I'd assumed it was a token gesture, but the envelope detailed something much bigger. A 20% equity share in a small real estate development firm she co-founded in the 1980s. I'd never followed up on it. At the time, I didn't want to make her family uncomfortable. But now, sitting in a crumbling hotel with no one checking if I was alive, I opened my laptop and searched the company name. My jaw dropped. The firm had just closed a massive deal, redevelopment, of 3 waterfront properties sold to an international investor group. I scanned the press release, heart pounding. The payout had already been issued to stakeholders. I opened my email, typed in the contact listed on the original document, and within 2 hours, I received confirmation. My portion of the sale was finalized last week. Amount transferred, $4.2 million. I stared at the screen for a long time, not smiling, not crying, just absorbing the new reality. I had been treated like a disposable old woman, a freeloader, a burden. But without asking, without begging, without warning, I now had the power to change everything. And I would, but not for revenge, for clarity, for control. Because I knew this much, I would never again let anyone make me feel small in a house I helped build. I didn't call James, I didn't text Heather, I didn't even tell a single friend. Instead, I sat in that hotel room with the email confirmation glowing on my screen and stared at it like it might vanish. The number was real, $4.2 million wired into an investment holding account under my name, a structure built quietly by Mrs. Langford's estate lawyers years ago. I didn't jump up and down. I didn't laugh or cry. I simply closed the laptop and stood up with a steadiness I hadn't felt in years. That afternoon, I walked to the nearest bank and scheduled an appointment with a financial advisor, a calm woman named Diane, who didn't flinch when I showed her the documentation. "This isn't a lottery win," I said quietly. "It's gratitude repaid, but I want to handle it like a professional." Diane nodded and got to work. By the next day, I had a full financial strategy in place. Multiple accounts opened under a trust name, with transfers structured to avoid unnecessary attention. We invested a portion immediately and kept a chunk liquid. Then, I did something I hadn't done in over a decade. I walked into a luxury real estate office and asked for a showing. I didn't use my real name. I'd learned enough from my years working as a private nurse in wealthy homes to understand how people talk. I signed in as Margaret Lewis, a quiet buyer looking for a low-profile home in a gated condo development. When the agent asked about budget, I said, "No upper limit, just discretion." We toured 3 places. The third one was perfect. 2 bedrooms, floor-to-ceiling windows, a view of the harbor, key-card entry, underground parking, concierge services, and a quiet demographic. I signed the paperwork that same day and wired the full payment in cash. No financing, no waiting. That night, I left the hotel without a word and moved into the condo like a shadow stepping into sunlight. No one knew I was there. No one knew I had money. And that was exactly how I wanted it. For the first time in decades, I had a space of my own again. No baby monitors buzzing, no chores waiting, no passive-aggressive notes about groceries on the fridge. I stocked the kitchen with food I actually liked, not juice boxes and microwave dinners. I bought a new coat. I threw away the threadbare cardigan. I got a proper haircut and replaced my phone with a new one. New number, clean slate. But this wasn't about transformation. This was about taking inventory. Because now that I was stable, I remembered something very specific. The house James and Heather lived in, the one I helped them get the mortgage for 5 years ago, it wasn't fully theirs. Back then, their credit wasn't strong enough on its own, and the bank had required a cosigner. I agreed, but only if my name went on the deed. I never revoked it. They'd never brought it up again, assuming I'd forgotten. But I hadn't. And now, with a lawyer on retainer and nothing left to lose, I wanted to see exactly how much legal ground I still stood on. It wasn't about taking anything back, not yet, but it was time they remembered I wasn't someone they could erase without consequence. I didn't go through the front door. I went through the courthouse records. It took one afternoon, one quiet trip downtown, and a 30-minute wait in the county clerk's office before a staffer printed out the property deed with my name still listed clearly alongside James and Heather's. Not a footnote. Not a past owner. A full, legal co-owner. I stared at the paper like it was a photograph of a memory I thought I'd lost. 5 years ago, I'd co-signed the mortgage because they couldn't qualify on their own. I never pushed to remove myself. After, because I trusted them. Because I believed that the house I helped them buy was a gift to their future, not an asset to leverage. I went home and emailed the file to Diane, my advisor, and to Marianne, a new attorney I'd just hired, on retainer. Marianne replied within the hour. Legally, you own 50% of the property unless a signed agreement states otherwise. They can't sell or refinance without your consent. That was all I needed. I didn't need to barge in. I didn't need to make a scene. I just needed to file the correct paperwork. I instructed Marianne to prepare a formal notice of intent to initiate partition. It meant one thing. They would have to buy me out at fair market value or be forced to sell the home. Entirely. I didn't want the house. I wanted the silence broken. I wanted James to remember who helped him climb and who he'd tried to erase. That evening, while sipping tea in my new condo, I checked the family group chat I'd been removed from. Still locked, still cut out. Not a single message from either of them. So I texted my accountant instead and said, let's get an appraiser on their property by Friday. The next day, a real estate assessor, hired quietly and legally, showed up at the house. James called me 2 hours later. His name popped up on my new phone, which I hadn't given to anyone. My gut said Marianne had notified them already. I answered, and his voice was sharp, confused and defensive. Mom, why is someone trying to appraise our house? I didn't flinch. Because it's not just your house. My name's still on the deed. You forgot? He paused. I could hear Heather in the background whispering something urgently. Then James said, but you gave us that house. I co-signed for it. I never signed it over. There's a difference, I said flatly. You want to throw me out like a stranger? Then we'll act like strangers. This is business now. He tried to soften. Come on, don't do this. Let's talk, face to face. You made your position clear, I replied. You wanted me gone, so I'm gone. Now we deal with paperwork. I hung up. My hands weren't shaking. There was no guilt. Just a calm, cold clarity I hadn't felt in years. They had turned me from family into a tenant. So now I would return the favor. As a co-owner of that home, I had the right to half its value. And I was going to take it. Quietly, legally, and without 1 ounce of hesitation. Let them feel what it's like to lose comfort. Let them taste the unease they fed me. This wasn't revenge. This was a reset. 2 days after the appraisal notice landed on their doorstep, James showed up outside the gates of my condo building, holding a bouquet of drooping supermarket flowers like we were in the third act of a cheap drama. He buzzed the intercom and, when I didn't answer, he waited. 30 minutes later, when I came downstairs to run errands, he rushed to meet me at the lobby entrance, his smile forced, eyes wide like a child caught stealing. Mom, can we talk? He asked, blocking my path. I think we all overreacted. Heather didn't mean to sound harsh. It's just been stressful lately. I looked at him without emotion. Stressful? You handed your mother a rent bill and told her to get out. That wasn't stress. That was a decision. His shoulders stiffened, but he kept the pleading tone. We were overwhelmed. You've always said you value independence. We just figured you might want your own space again. You didn't offer space, I said calmly. You offered an ultimatum. I stepped around him, but he followed. You're really going through with this? You're going to force us to sell our house? I stopped, turned slowly, and met his eyes. No, I'm giving you the option to buy out my share. That's more than fair. His voice cracked. We can't afford that. Not now. Then you'll need to make a decision, I said, and kept walking. That evening, Heather called. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail, calculated, overly sweet. Hi, Margaret. Just wanted to say we miss you, and the kids ask about you all the time. Maybe you could swing by and see them this weekend? They've been drawing pictures for you. I played it once, then deleted it. The next day, a delivery driver showed up at my door with a package. Inside was a handmade card from my youngest grandson and a photo of the kids holding a sign that read, "We love Grandma." Tucked underneath was a note from Heather. Let's not let money come between us. You'll always have a place in our home. I stared at it for a long moment, then dropped it straight into the shredder. They hadn't checked on me when I vanished. not one text when I left. But now that my name was on legal paperwork, I was suddenly their cherished matriarch again. I wasn't playing this game. That week, I had a custom security gate installed in the condo garage and updated the doorman with a list of people not to let in under any circumstances. James came by again, this time with both kids in tow, trying to paint a sidewalk reunion. Scene straight out of a TV special. I stood on the other side of the glass doors and watched him mouth my name, holding the youngest in his arms like a shield. I didn't move. I didn't smile. I turned and walked back toward the elevator. If they wanted a mother, they should have treated me like one before they treated me like a paycheck. The message had been sent, and the line was now drawn. I wasn't just retired. I was unavailable. Permanently. It started with a video captioned, "When your husband's mother abandons you after using you for years," and within 2 hours, it had 50,000 views. I didn't have TikTok on my phone, but a former colleague from my nursing days texted me the link with a single line. "They're making it public now." I clicked the link, and there she was. Heather, tear-streaked and glowing in filtered light, sitting on the edge of their perfectly curated living room, speaking softly to the camera. "We opened our home to her during the hardest years," she said, her voice trembling. "We gave her everything, and now she's trying to take our house away. I'm not doing this for sympathy. I just want people to know the truth." She went on for 5 minutes, carefully balancing just enough tears with just enough humility to make herself look like a saint. James appeared halfway through, eyes lowered, nodding solemnly, saying things like, "I just didn't think my own mom would turn on us like this. We're not greedy. We just wanted peace." I stared at the screen and felt no anger, only strategy, forming. The comment section was a flood of sympathy. How could a mother do this to her own son? She must be mentally ill. You're so strong for speaking up. Heather leaned into it. She posted 3 more videos that week, one showing old photos of me with the kids, another walking through the house while whispering, "She wants to take this from her grandchildren," and a third standing outside the house saying, "We might lose this soon. Please send prayers." Donations started trickling into their linked Venmo. I sat in my condo watching all of it unfold, and not once did I feel the need to respond. Not yet. Let them build their narrative. Let the world rally. Because when I spoke, it wouldn't be in whispers or half-truths. It would be with documents, dates, contracts, receipts. And when I dropped them, the silence would be louder than any of their cries. Until then, I let them enjoy their little performance because I already knew how it ended. Not with a dramatic twist, but with a quiet shutdown. I wasn't going to shout. I was going to prove. And when the curtain fell, they'd be the only ones standing there exposed. I didn't announce anything. I just made an account, uploaded a video, and let the truth speak first. No filters, no tears, no background music. Just me, sitting at my dining table, clean light pouring in from the window behind me, a stack of documents laid out with care. I introduced myself plainly. "I'm Margaret Bennett. I've been silent for weeks while my son and his wife told the world I abandoned them. Now I'd like to explain my side, with facts, not feelings." Then I started showing them. Scanned. Grocery receipts from the last 3 years, many over $300 per week, all paid from my pension. Photos of me making school lunches, birthday cakes, cleaning the yard in winter while they vacationed. Screenshots of money transfers. $15,000 for their kitchen renovation, another $3,000 when their car broke down. Childcare logs I'd kept out of habit, with notes on when each grandchild had fevers, doctor visits, milestones. Then I unfolded the property deed, holding it up close to the lens. "This is the house they live in," I said, my voice steady. "Look closely at the names. Mine is right there. I didn't demand rent. I was evicted. And when I exercised my legal right to reclaim what I helped build, I became the villain in their story." I ended the video there. No commentary, no accusations. I posted it with the caption, "Let's balance the story." Within an hour, comments flooded in. I believed them. Now I feel sick. This woman has every receipt, literally. Justice for Margaret. Views exploded past 100,000, then 1 million. People reposted, stitched, analyzed. A lawyer even broke down the legal filing I'd mentioned, confirming everything I said was airtight. News outlets picked it up. Local stations, then national ones. Heather's next video tried to spin it. "I didn't lie," she insisted. "She's twisting everything. We just needed help." But the comments had turned. Her sympathy wave collapsed under the weight of evidence. Screenshots of my post lined up next to hers in side-by-side comparisons. One user captioned it. Heather said, "Vibes." Margaret said, "Documentation." Sponsors she'd partnered with pulled out. PTA boards removed her name from directories. And James, once smug in the background, now looked like he wanted to melt into the floor every time a camera turned on. I wasn't gloating. I didn't smile. I posted only one follow-up video. This isn't revenge, this is record-keeping, and I kept everyone. Then I logged off, because I didn't need applause. I had reclaimed something far better: credibility, visibility, and silence where chaos once lived. Let them spin. I had already spoken. And now, the world was listening. The collapse didn't come with screaming or slammed doors. It came with silence, hesitation, and then a quiet unraveling that no PR spin could salvage. Within a week of my video going viral, Heather's sponsored posts disappeared from her account, replaced with vague captions about taking a mental health break and stepping away from negativity. But the comments kept piling up. Where's the apology? What happened to the full story? Margaret deserves more than silence. The PTA emailed her a formal removal notice citing community trust concerns, and someone in the neighborhood posted a screenshot of the board. Vote unanimous. Then came the real shift. James's work called him in for a meeting after someone forwarded the video thread. He wasn't fired, but he was placed under review, and suddenly his LinkedIn went private. Meanwhile, I sat across from Marianne, my attorney, as she slid a stack of documents toward me. "The petition's filed. They have 30 days to respond. If they can't buy you out, we force a sale." I nodded, not out of malice, but finality. This was no longer emotional. It was contractual. I didn't care if they lost the house. I cared that they finally understood the cost of erasing someone's contribution. Heather tried one last Hail Mary, posting a teary video with the kids in the background saying, "We're being punished for something that was never about money." But the tone had shifted. People weren't buying it anymore. They asked questions. Why didn't you respond with your own proof? Why did you evict her before even offering a discussion? Why was it okay to use her when it was convenient? The donations stopped. Their sympathy engine shut down. Meanwhile, Diane, my financial advisor, forwarded me 2 offers from buyers interested in their house. Word had gotten around that a forced sale was pending and real estate agents were circling. I sent them both to Marianne and said, "Let's prepare the response packet." I didn't watch their accounts anymore. I didn't track their lives. I had no interest in whether Heather deleted her TikTok or if James found a new job. What mattered was that the false image they built had cracked wide open, not by accident, but by fact. They tried to rewrite the story with filters and hashtags. I rewrote it with the truth. And when it was time to close the final chapter of this home, I wouldn't walk in as a mother trying to be accepted. I'd walk in as a co-owner reclaiming what was always mine. No apologies needed. No forgiveness required. Just the end of a transaction disguised for years as love. I knew they'd try something desperate, but I didn't expect them to drag my sister into it, especially not after 10 years of silence. When a video popped up featuring a woman with my nose and voice, claiming I'd always been obsessed with money and manipulated everyone around her, I didn't get angry. I got focused. That woman was Linda, my estranged younger sister. Someone I hadn't spoken to since the night she stole $3,500 from our dying mother's hospice fund and vanished. Seeing her now, acting like some authority on my character, was almost laughable. She sat in a cluttered kitchen, speaking to the camera like a low-budget documentary subject, reciting lines Heather and James had clearly fed her. "Margaret was never maternal," she said, shaking her head. "She always looked down on people. She acted like she was better than us just because she worked for rich families." The video made it onto Reddit, Twitter, even a couple reaction channels looking to fan the flames. It racked up a few 100,000 views before I responded. I didn't raise my voice or defend myself emotionally. I just uploaded a PDF to my public drive and posted the link with one sentence. The woman in that video once signed over medical power of attorney to me while I paid her rent during cancer treatment she now denies ever having. Attached were hospital bills in my name, email correspondence with her care team, rent receipts, and a notarized affidavit from her former landlord confirming I'd covered 7 months of payments. Within hours, the Reddit thread turned. Wait, she lied about her illness? Margaret paid her bills and now she's calling her greedy? This is embarrassing. Someone even tracked down a GoFundMe Linda had set up years ago claiming she was homeless, despite the evidence that I'd housed her. It was over before it really started. Heather and James had gambled on a weak narrative, hoping the internet would be too lazy to check the facts. But I didn't come unarmed. I had decades of proof, because when you've spent your life being underestimated, you learn to document everything. James tried to backpedal, claiming in a deleted post that we didn't know Linda's history and that family dynamics are complicated. But it was too late. Their credibility was shattered, and all they'd done was show how far they were willing to stoop just to dodge accountability. Meanwhile, I continued with the partition process, met with buyers, and scheduled inspections. Every move I made was clean, traceable, and legal. I didn't need to smear them, I just needed to let them talk long enough to expose who they really were. And by now, the world had seen more than enough. The town's annual spring open market was the last place I expected to be ambushed, but Heather's mother, Elaine, had never been one for subtlety. I was browsing handmade soaps when she stormed up, sunglasses perched high on her head like a crown, lips curled with righteous fury. "How dare you show your face here," she hissed, loud enough for nearby vendors to glance over. "You destroyed your own family and you're walking around like nothing happened? People like you shouldn't be allowed to raise children, let alone rip their lives apart." I stayed calm, as always. "I don't respond to public scenes," I said, stepping aside. But she moved to block me, her voice rising. "You're a disgrace. Posting videos, humiliating James and Heather online. You think that makes you a hero?" The crowd had started. Gathering, phones discreetly lifted, people murmuring. I opened my purse slowly, took out a flash drive, and held it up. "If you're so interested in what's humiliating, you might want to hear what your daughter and son-in-law really think." "Of me," I said. "Play this at your next family dinner." She sneered. "What is that, more lies?" I smiled faintly. "It's audio. A conversation recorded by accident. They were talking about me, about how long they could milk me before I figured it out. Want to know what your daughter said? As long as she's breathing and paying bills, let her stay." James laughed and called me a walking wallet with Alzheimer's. Should I go on? Elaine's face dropped, color draining, her bravado crumbling under the weight of a truth she didn't expect. "You're bluffing," she muttered. "You made that up." I didn't flinch. "I've already submitted it as supporting documentation in the partition case. It's verified and time-stamped. The judge has heard it. Would you like me to email you a copy too?" She didn't speak, just stared, jaw tightening, then turned and stormed off as the onlookers parted for her like a shame parade. I left without saying another word, walking past the crowd with the same calm dignity I'd walked out of James's house with. Back home, I received confirmation the recording had been reviewed and filed by the court, strengthening my case. The next day, Heather's online accounts went private, her videos deleted, her Venmo link scrubbed. James didn't post anything either. Silence fell like a curtain. I hadn't needed to yell, accuse, or scream. All I had to do was show the truth. And that, more than any dramatic performance, left them exposed in a way no recovery could patch. It took less than a week after the audio leaked for Heather to file for divorce, and even less time for the news to reach me through a mutual acquaintance who worked in the county clerk's office. The document was public record. Heather citing irreconcilable betrayal, financial negligence, and reputational harm. Not just vague language, but full accusations aimed directly at James. I wasn't surprised. Heather had always been transactional, and the moment the social media backlash cost her brand deals and PTA positions, she needed a new scapegoat, and James fit the bill perfectly. From what I was told, she served him the papers on a Thursday morning and left with the kids by noon, staying at her mother's while James was left alone in the house that was now under court-ordered sale review. He tried to reach out twice, once through a voicemail, once through a mutual friend. Both times the message was the same. "This got out of hand, Mom. I never wanted this to happen." I didn't reply. I let the silence stretch, because the truth was, everything that had happened he had allowed. He had pushed it forward. He had taken a piece of paper and told his mother to pay rent or get out, and every domino that fell after was set in motion by that single moment of audacity and cruelty. Now it had all caught up. Meanwhile, I finalized the paperwork with Marianne and accepted the highest offer on the house, selling my 50% share to a real estate investor who planned to renovate and flip it. I didn't ask who would buy James out or where he would go. I didn't care. The funds hit my account in full, and I immediately transferred half of it into a scholarship endowment I set up in my own name for working grandmothers raising their grandchildren. It wasn't for show. It was a final act of closure. I had given everything I had to James, emotionally, financially, physically, and when that wasn't enough, he had tried to convert my love into rent. Now that love had turned into independence, and that independence had become unshakable. I sold the condo a week later, packed what little I needed, and moved to a quiet coastal town 3 hours away. New number, new address, no forwarding information. For the first time in decades, I didn't owe anyone anything. Not my time, not my energy, not my silence, and certainly not my forgiveness. I wasn't angry anymore. I was finished. And that was something far stronger than revenge. It was peace. Months passed without a single word from James. Not a call, not a letter, not even an anonymous email trying to sneak past the filters I'd installed in my new digital life. But one morning, while having coffee at a small lakeside cafe near my new home, an old neighbor from my previous street sat down across from me with wide eyes and said, "I just saw a video. You won't believe where James ended up." I didn't flinch, didn't ask, but she kept going, pulling out her phone and flipping it around, showing me a blurry clip of James on a street corner in a neighboring city, live streaming to a few hundred viewers from a borrowed phone. His eyes, hollow, clothes wrinkled, voice barely holding together as he told his audience how he'd been abandoned by everyone and robbed of his inheritance, spinning yet another sob story, but now without Heather, without the kids, without the house, just a man sitting beside a cracked thermos and a cardboard sign that read, "Help me start over." And as I watched him gesturing at passing cars, trying to muster outrage and pity in equal measure, I didn't feel satisfaction or triumph or even sorrow. I felt nothing, not numbness, but clarity, a kind of emotional stillness that comes when something ends so completely there's no residue left behind. He had played every angle, weaponized every relationship, and now he was left with the only version of himself he couldn't rebrand, the truth. I thanked my neighbor politely, paid my bill, and walked home under a canopy of wisteria blooms, the air warm and quiet, my garden waiting, my easel set up beneath the window, my inbox empty of noise, my phone free of pleas. I brewed another cup of coffee and sat down with a book I hadn't read since I was 23, back when I still believed family always meant safety. I'd unlearned that since. I'd learned that love must be earned, that sacrifice must be seen, that silence is not weakness, but choice, and that letting go doesn't make you cruel, it makes you free. People still asked sometimes, in passing conversations or curious moments, "Do you regret cutting him off?" And I always gave the same answer with the same calm smile. No, I regret not doing it sooner. Because the truth is, kindness without boundaries isn't virtue, it's self-erasure. And I had spent enough of my life erasing myself for people who would never bother remembering what I gave up for them. I didn't wish James harm. I didn't hope he suffered. I just hoped he learned. But whether he did or didn't was no longer my burden to carry. That weight had been put down. That door had been closed. And from where I sat now, with the water sparkling outside and not a single voice demanding anything from me, it was clear. I hadn't lost a son. I had reclaimed a life. And that's why I'm telling this story, because I made it out. I'm living in a place that's mine, surrounded by calm, not chaos. I smile when I wake up, I cook for one, and I sleep with a clear heart. I'm not waiting for anyone to come around. I'm happy, I'm free, and I wouldn't change a thing. That's it for today. What would you have done in her place? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I love reading what you all think. And hey, if this story hit you, check out these videos too. You won't want to miss them.